So we're going to be looking at communication skills for health and social care, learning outcome 2 today. In our last session, we covered learning outcome 1, where we talked about the principles of effective communication. We looked at different models like Aristotle and Scrum and Warren and Weaver, just about how their communication models differed. And then we looked at how to explain the benefits of informal and formal communication systems, like maybe writing a letter or texting, emails. And then we looked at how technology is used, and that took us on to proposing any barriers to effective solutions. And then for the distinction, we looked at how we could evaluate different uses of technology. So that section was all about communication and how the sort of models and modes that we actually use to communicate. Today's outcome is about interaction. So learning outcome 2. So be able to interact orally with individuals in a health and social care setting. Risa's joining us now. So for this section, like I said, it's all about interaction, about how you interact with your patient or the service user, as we call them. So we're going to be looking at 4 learning outcomes on this, 4 assessment criteria, sorry. The first one is 2.1, use different styles and methods of oral communication to meet the needs of different individuals. Then we'll be looking at 2.2, so demonstrate appropriate listening skills. 2M1 will be use appropriate methods, including technology and other aids to present information orally. And 2D1 will be manage and facilitate a question and answer session to demonstrate subject knowledge and assess effectiveness of own oral communication skills. So, like I mentioned before we started our recording, part of this will be covered with the answers with your work in learning outcome 1. Because when we get to the assignment, learning outcome 1 is going to be in a PowerPoint format. 2M1 and 2D1 will actually get covered with that, because what you will be doing is you'll be using a PowerPoint to present information. So that covers 2M1, you're using an appropriate method. And then after that happens, you can actually manage and facilitate. So you can manage a question and answer session within one of our sessions to cover that as well. But I'll explain further when we get onto assignment day for that. Arista, I know you've joined us. Can you... sorry, I think she's reconnecting. Okay. So is that okay so far with what we're going to be covering, Ben?
Yeah, I'm all right.
So let's make a start. Right. So communication skills for health and social care. So learning outcome 2, we're going to look at how we can interact orally with individuals in a health and social care setting. So this little section is just telling us what communication is. So we know that communication is not just about what we say verbally, but also what we do through our own actions. It's about how our bodies, our faces, and how our body language, what we do to express ourselves. So this is a little exercise for you. So without using any words, can you see if you can use certain actions to convey yourself? Like if I wanted to show that I was happy, I'd obviously give a smile. If I was anxious, I might look a little bit worried, and so on. With those things. Let's see. Arista, can you hear me now? Arista has joined, but I'm not sure if she's fully connected. Arista, if you can't hear me or see me, please send me a message. Sorry, Ben, I'll just be a moment.
No problem.
So like we were saying, so people who work in the health and social care settings, as we've covered over the past few sessions that we've had together, even in the PCA unit that we were doing, that communication for people who work in HSC is vital, especially if you can't communicate verbally with the person. So you're trying to convey yourself in a lot of different ways, and you're actually even trying to show them that a person that you are paying attention. So you need to be able to convey in a variety of ways. So people that you might need to be communicating with are the patient, relatives, visitors, other colleagues or practitioners, and maybe other people from care agencies. So we're going to go on to 2.1. There it is. So for 2.1, we're going to look at use different styles and methods of oral communication to meet the needs of different individuals. So in this section, we're just looking at the different ways that communication can take place to meet the needs of your patients or even your colleagues. So practitioners who work in health and social care and early year settings need to be able to communicate in different ways. So early year settings are like, just to clarify, are like schools like nursery, reception, playgroups, where language might not have been developed for the young children. So you're communicating with individuals, colleagues, and other professionals and families. And there are 4 different types of communication skills that practitioners need to be able to understand. So there are verbal, non-verbal, written, and specialist. So over the next few slides, we'll actually be going through what those are. Right, so verbal skills, like as you obviously know, verbal is spoken communication. So it's how you're actually speaking and talking to others. So it really depends on how confident you are in your own abilities. So are you speaking clearly? Are you being positive? Are you using a very low voice? Are you mumbling? So it's up to how confident you are in your own abilities and how you will communicate. So communicating with clarity, so making sure that you're clear voiced and the other person is actually understanding what you say, involves sharing information with others clearly, accurately, and in a way that can be easily understood. So you're pronouncing words clearly, you're not mumbling, and you're not using words that aren't respectful. And you're also being receptive to communications, so you're listening to the person that is speaking to you at that moment. So are we okay with verbal skills?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Then, so we've looked at verbal skills over here. It's jumped on to 2.2. I'm not sure why it's done that. So things like non-verbal, we'll go through that actually. Oh, good morning, Arista. I can see your message now. Arista, if you have any questions, just type if I can't hear your voice, or unmute yourself. So non-verbal is where you're, like we discussed earlier, where you're smiling or nodding or you're giving eye contact just to let the person know that that you're paying attention. Written is when you're either doing emails or letters, any form of written communication. You might be writing a note down to maybe the person is unable to speak, but they can write, so they might be writing a note down back for you. And specialist is when you might be using sign language or like a picture exchange communication system where you're showing picture cards. So a whole load of different ways. So we're on to 2.2, which is demonstrate appropriate listening skills. Now, on here, you're going to be looking at what type of effective communication can take place in a care setting. So, because having appropriate listening skills actually helps you to develop a good relationship with the people that you're working with, so they can be your colleagues or even your patients. By doing this, you help people be relaxed, you're able to empathize with another person, and you're actually getting warmth and genuineness in the relationship. So, oops, just dropped my paper. Excuse me. So effective communication, it also requires the care worker to develop a range of skills and abilities and communication techniques, and we're going to go over those now. So we've got something called the solar model of communication. Now, the solar model of communication was actually made by somebody called Gerard Engen. Yes, Egan, sorry, my wording. He is based on counseling. Now, this solar model is actually based on something, it's quite simple. It's the first letter of each thing that actually is named solar. So the S is for sit squarely, O is for open position, L is for lean slightly, E is for eye contact, and R is for relax. So solar is what that makes. So it just shows how you can actively listen and demonstrate to others that you're doing that. So when we go for the S, is sit squarely. So you're sitting squarely in relation to the person, and this is demonstrating that you're actually ready to listen. You have an open body language, which means that you're more attentive. So you're not hunched over, you're not crossing your legs or your arms. You're quite open. You're showing them that, yes, I'm happy to listen to you. You're leaning slightly towards the person to who you're listening, and this shows that you're interested in what they've got to say. You're maintaining eye contact, and you're relaxing, or you're trying to relax. So you're not fidgeting or moving your hands about, because this can be distracting to the other person. So that's one way using the solar model to show that you're actively listening. Is there any questions on this model?
No, fun and more right.
Yeah, good. Right, so active listening. So a person who uses active listening actually pays close attention to what the other person is saying and notices the non-verbal messages that they're communicating. So people who are good at active listening also tend to be skilled at using minimal prompts. They do nods, they go, and they encourage, and they say, yes, okay, yeah, okay, I understand, go on. They're using prompts like these. They're very skillful in the use of minimal prompts, and it encourages the other person to keep speaking or say a little more. Now, I'm quite guilty for active listening. When I'm in a face-to-face situation, I tend to drift off a little bit. So I've got to bring myself back, because I can be making the, yes, okay, but then at the end of the conversation, I'll have no idea what was going on because I've drifted. So that is something that I, for one, need to work on. So everybody's got a little bit of something that needs to be done. So for active listening, there's also a little example of a worker in an early year setting that we use. There's, for example, a teacher called Aileen. What happens is that she notices that young children aged 4 to 5 and so on are actually approaching her a lot more compared to other teachers. And the reason that they're doing this is because when they come to speak to her, because they're so small, she actually bends down to their level. She gives them eye contact. She listens to them. She's paying attention to them, and she's actually being caring towards them. In regards to somebody else who might not be actually listening or paying attention or doing any of these other things. So there might be another member of staff within that setting who actually will just stay standing up and tower over the child. So it really depends on how you behave yourself, and that's how you will get approached. Because I'm pretty sure that within your own settings, you'll notice that there's certain colleagues or patients that are much happier to speak to a certain member of staff than to another one. Because it really does help that you're showing active listening towards them. We've just had another person join us. The person that's just joined under the username Hi, morning. They've muted and stuff, that's fine. Right. So listening and attending. So these are by far the most important aspects of health and of being a healthcare professional. So as you know, everybody wants to be listened to. They want to be able to tell their story to them. They might want to have a bit of a natter. They might be feeling lonely, or they just sometimes they like to chat, and it's nice that somebody can actually listen to that person. So when you're there and you're being attentive and you're actually listening to your patient or to your colleague, it really makes them feel good. You're developing relationships again with them. So by attending, it means that you're actually focusing on the other person. You're consciously making yourself aware of what the person is saying and what they're trying to communicate to you. And you're actually paying a lot of attention. So Arista and Ben, are you okay with listening and attending?
Yeah, from me.
Fantastic. And then aspects of listening. And this is like the linguistics or the language aspects of your speech. So it's the words that you actually use and the phrases that you use. So this is a bit of terminology that comes into this. So paralinguistics, this means it's all aspects of the speech that you're using, but it's also not just the words. Fantastic, Arista. It's not just the words, but it's the timing, the tone, the volume, the pitch, the accents, how you're actually saying something. So you might be asking someone, are they okay? But it depends. You could be like, are you okay? That bit there, how I said that sounded a bit aggressive. But if I say, are you okay? You sound like you're a bit more caring. So it depends on what type of volume or tone or pitch that you use. Then also non-verbal aspects of communication, like we've mentioned earlier, it's like your body language, what expressions you use on your face. You might be scowling, you might be smiling, you might be blank, what gestures you use, what your body position is, how you move, how close you are to others, because some people might like close proximity, but to others it might be threatening, so it's up to you to understand that, to not tower over someone or to just keep the appropriate distance within them. Or even, like we mentioned over here, touch, like you might want to pat someone's shoulder if you're comforting them. So these are different aspects of listening. So a lot of things, it sounds very easy when you say, yes, I'm listening to you, I'm doing this, but a lot of things actually go into it. So it's how you're actually sitting. Are you maintaining eye contact? Are you too close to them? Are you too far away? Are you paying attention? So there's a lot of things that you need to focus on when you're actively listening. We also have something called behavioral aspects to listening. So this is where you're sitting squarely in front of the patient. You're maintaining an open position. Like we said before, you've not got your arms or legs crossed. You're not crouching down. You're slightly leaning forwards. You've got reasonable eye contact, but you're not staring at them. You should blink. You should look away once in a while, and you're trying to relax. So we've got a little box here where it shows some skills and how you communicate. So when you maintain eye contact, you're showing the person that you are important. When you do prompts like yes, go on, or you're nodding your head, or you give that means that I'm still listening to you. That's what the person is understanding. And then when you have open questions where you're saying, how are you feeling? Are you good today? Then that's showing the person that you're listening to is that you're interested and that you're concerned in them. So it's just like simple little things that actually show another person that you are paying full attention to them. And then the last section to 2.2, blocks to effective listening. So as humans, as people with their own lives, we know that we might not have had a good day. One of your children might not be feeling well. You might have had a little bit of an argument. Your car might not have started. Somebody might have stolen something from you, or you might be having financial issues. So we always have something going on with us all the time. So if you're bringing this into your work, that's going to be a block to you listening because you're not paying attention to your patient, you're not paying attention to your work, your mind is somewhere else. So you've got to try and not have that. Just try and block that out at that moment. So things like health, like your own problems. You might have stress and anxiety. You might feel like you've not got enough time to do everything that you need to do in a day. You might feel awkward or uncomfortable. Maybe the chair that you're sitting in is hard. You might be sitting at the edge of a bed. You might not be wearing the most comfortable clothing. Something might be too tight. So that's going to make you feel awkward and uncomfortable where you are. Like I said earlier, I tend to drift sometimes. So you might have lack of attention, you might have drifted off, or you might not be listening 100%. You also might have make judgments or interpretations on behalf of the healthcare professional. So this is where you're looking at the person and they might be telling you something, but you're making your own judgments. You're jumping to conclusions, which is something you should try and avoid. So here are things that can help you listen effectively. So you've got attention, suspension of judgment, like don't make judgments. I've been guilty for making judgments before and I've been completely wrong. So make sure you're paying attention to behavioral aspects of listening. Avoid interpretation. Actually ask what they mean if there's something that you're not sure about, and use minimal prompts. So we've looked at blocks to effective listening and what can actually help us to listen effectively. So that was 2.2. Is there any questions on this active listening section?
No, I'm okay.
So we'll make our way on to 2 and 1.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, my name is Gania Sade.
Oh, hi. Is it Gania?
Yes.
Hi, Gania. How are you?
I'm fine.
Do you have a question?
No, I just like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, you've missed a few things. You've missed 2.1, but I think you've had half of 2.2, haven't you? We have recorded the session, which is, you should be able to go back to join in with that.
Okay.
Do you have any questions that you want to ask?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, so we're going on to 2M1, which is the merit question. And this shows is use appropriate methods, including technology and other aids to present information orally. So I'm going to read through this and I'm going to tell you how this will be covered. So we've got something called communication aids. So technology has enabled an increasing number of electronic and digital aids to communication that can help people who have difficulty speaking. So many of these devices enable messages to be recorded and stored and played at the touch of a button. The devices range in sophistication and price. The information, advice, and guidance in choosing the most suitable devices is available from speech and language therapists to whom a referral can be made within the NHS. So this section is actually, there's 2 ways that this will be covered when you get into the assignment. The first way is that you'll be talking about different communication aids, like you're going to be talking about hearing aids that are available, British Sign Language or Makaton, which is another thing I'll actually show you on here. So remember, this is a specification sheet that we looked at. When we scroll down, we get into the section here, so communication aids. So you're talking about the different sort of aids that you can actually use. And then also, like I mentioned to Ben earlier, that some of this will be covered by the PowerPoint that you're going to make for Learning Outcome 1, which I will explain clearly on Wednesday. So I'll go back and I'll show you what will happen. So when you've made a PowerPoint for Learning Outcome 1, what you're doing is, because you're using technology, which is a PowerPoint presentation to present communication, that is covering the use of appropriate methods of technology. So you're covering 2M1. But that's not the only thing you need to do. You need to write a little bit of things about how certain aspects of things are used, like how, like I mentioned, hearing aids are used, how a voice communication system might be used. You've got the loop. You might be using text phone or the laptop to communicate with someone. So you have to write a little bit about that first, and then your presentation for Learning Outcome 1 will cover the rest of this. Are we all clear on this, or would you like some more information?
I think this will be all right. Until we go over them again on Wednesday, that'll make it more clear.
Yeah, I will do, because when I'm not trying to be vague. It's just that I know that it's going to take a while to go through, and it's easier for me to just tell you everything in one go of what we'll cover what on the assignment day. So in that note, I'll go on to 2D1. So, oops, I'm too far forward. There you go. So the distinction question is manage and facilitate a question and answer session to demonstrate your subject knowledge and assess effectiveness of your oral communication skills. So what you need to do is you're going to conduct a Q&A session with me. You're going to gain information about, things like what you'll do is on your Learning Outcome 1, you're going to be making a PowerPoint presentation about the different models of communication, and what you're covering all of LO1, which I'll go into now. So you're going to be outlining the principles of effective communication, and one section you'll have another section where you're talking about the models of communication, and then you'll explain the benefits and explain how the technology is used. What you will do for 2D1 is you will actually come in session, you will present that to the class. So instead of me teaching, for example, Ben, you'll tell us, make a presentation of the PowerPoint that you've made, and at the end you'll say, has anybody got any questions? And then we will ask you questions. So we'll ask you, okay, what does this Aristotle's model of communication, what does that mean? Could you please tell me a bit more clearly, give me more information about it? And then as we're having question and answer sessions with yourself, with your fellow students, I'll be making notes, and I'll fill out an observation sheet for you, which will be part of your assignment. So when you've made your PowerPoint for Learning Outcome 1, we'll set up a session where you can present it yourselves to the rest of the class, and then that will cover this section. So these are some pointers on how to do that. So once you're doing that, so to help maintain control of a conversation, so we're going to see how you can contain control of that conversation. Are you assertive? Are you letting people talk over you, or are you actually listening to them and actually answering what they say clearly? Are you expressing an interest in other people, or are you just saying, yeah, I don't care, whatever? Are you actually giving them enough information that that person understands what, the question, the answer that they're getting from you? And also, are you clarifying any points? Are you actually making certain things clear? Are you telling them? So, for example, if I was to ask you, could you please explain what the principles of effective communication are? I'm not 100% sure on this. Are you taking the time to actually explain that to me clearly? So these are the things that I will be looking at if you decide to go for the distinction question on that. So like I said, that with this section is the last two questions are pretty straightforward, because Learning Outcome 1 will actually help you cover those. It just has to be tweaked a little bit more, and a little bit more work put in where you're presenting your presentation to us, and then we'll work from there. So that's it for this Learning Outcome 2. Is there any questions about this?
None from me. I'm all right.
Fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into, like we normally do, and just have show you where certain things are. So this is the specification sheet, like you all know by now. When we scroll down, indicative contents is something I swear by. It really helps you go on the right track to make sure that you're writing the correct style of answers down. So in 2.1, you're using different styles and methods of oral communication. So there's a load of pointers here. So you're talking about conversation or dialogue, formal presentations, discussion groups is another style of communication, interviews, then we've got formal and informal. Then we've got, Sorry, Gadiet, I can't hear you very clearly.
No, okay, ma'am.
Okay. Then we've got different audiences, which is your colleagues, individuals, families, community groups. That was 2.2, is how you communicate with different audiences. You've got presenting information, like you're doing a formal presentation. You're using a PowerPoint technology, PowerPoint presentation in Learning Outcome 1 to answer 2M1. You're making your presentation aid is where you're making that presentation, and so on. And then you've got a question and answer session where you would open the floor to say, right, ask me some questions. And then 2D1 is how you're responding to the questions and how you're demonstrating your subject knowledge, the use of your language, and the use of your verbal and non-verbal communication. For that day, what we'll do is we'll actually turn our video cameras on so we can see each other. I know that some of you have bad connection, which is why, which is the reason I've not put my camera on, because sometimes I'll waver in and out, but we'll make sure that we do it for that day. And then, just before I let you go, unless you have any questions, we'll go back onto our Moodle, our virtual learning environment. I'll show you where everything is. So I'll just take a moment. Has anybody got any questions while this is loading up?
Please, what's the name? When are we meeting it?
So you get it? You're breaking up.
Asking we are meeting this one.
Can you do me a favour, Ganya? Can you type the question? Do you know the little bubble on the top of the Join Me bar, where you've got something that shows a microphone and then there's a little speech bubble? Can you click on that and type your question? Just that your voice keeps breaking up. Thank you.
Yeah, I think she's trying to find out when are we supposed to submit this assignment.
Oh, okay. I'm going to give you the assignment on Wednesday, and then you've got 2 weeks after that. So on Wednesday, it will be the 2nd of December, I'm guessing. Yes, it will be. And then you'll have until the 16th of December to submit it. So we're going to the communication skills for healthcare. The specification sheet that I've been looking at is this one at the top, the very first one, communication skills for health and social care. Then we scroll down, we had our learning outcome 1 session, and then our learning outcome 2 session should be put on here, but this is my old recording. This is LO2, new. Brilliant. I'll go over that again, Ganya, in just a moment. This is a LO2 PowerPoint on here that we're going to use. And the handouts that I told you about last week, the only one that you need to have another look at again is the LO1, LO2, LO3 handout, which is this that I showed you last week. Ganya, just to repeat, I'm not sure if you heard me before, I'm going to give you the assignment on Wednesday, which will be the 2nd of December, and then you have 2 weeks to do it. So if you could give it back to me by the 16th of December, please. But don't worry about the assignment right now. I will go through everything, what we need to do on Wednesday. So in the meantime, when you get the recording of this session, please go back, listen to what you've missed, because that'll catch you on everything. Yeah. So yeah, this has got Learning Outcome 2 in it as well, just in case you want to have a quick look. Verbal, non-verbal communication. Fantastic. So I'm going to turn the recording off.